Hello, everyone. My name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about Don Quixote. Now, before I go into summary analysis of this work, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and/or comment so that the channel can continue to grow. All right. So, Don Quixote. Very interesting work here. We have this man by the name of Alonso Quixano, and very strange man. I mean, he's a low-ranking member of nobility. Um, you know, he's had a normal life. He's had money. Everything is good. But he gets bored with life, and he's like, "Well, I want to become a knight, like the ones I read about in my fiction books." And so, he makes himself a suit of armor. He gets his horse, and his niece and his housekeeper are unimpressed. And, this dude, he goes out and he's pretty much insane. I mean, he's attacking random people, attacking inns, giving random speeches, fighting these monsters that don't exist, charging windmills. So the first expedition, when he goes out, it's unsuccessful. And ultimately, he enlists this peasant by the name of Sancho Panza. Now, Panza is promised, a better life, money, things like that. He joins, and then pretty much he gets wrapped into the craziness of Alonso Quixano. Now, Alonso Quixano, he changes his name to Don Quixote. So there's the title right there, Don Quixote. So Don Quixote and Panza, they just go on these adventures. They just leave everything behind. They go on these adventures, attacking inns. Don Quixote giving these random, speeches about chivalry and honor. You know, before he leaves, he's doing it all in the name of this random woman that he knows nothing about, and her name, because in his mind she's a beautiful princess. And he's fighting monsters, giants. He has a duel with a man, and when he wins, he wears the man's wash basin on his head because he thinks it's valuable. So honestly, for me, it's like your neighborhood drunk. It's just that Don Quixote is just like your country's drunk. So he's just running around Spain, doing all these crazy things, and the legend of Don Quixote, spreads. Like everybody starts talking about him. The first expedition, wasn't successful. The second one with Panza is better. Ultimately, the local priest and this barber that know Don Quixote or Alonso, they go and get him. They get him to come back home. But then he goes on another expedition with Panza, and they keep attacking things, attacking inns. He's pretty much mixing in stories and novels and things that he's heard about knights with his adventures. And they're doing a bunch of crazy things. I mean, they're just running around the country. They're not really facing real enemies. They're just attacking things, getting into some really messed up situations. And, people make fun of them. I mean, there's a Duke and Duchess that hear the story, and they invite them to their home, and they pull pranks on him. They make Don Quixote believe that he's riding on the back of a flying horse. They turn Panza into a politician of some strange land, a leader of some strange land, and then he ultimately gives it up and comes back to Don Quixote. It's just a mess. It's a whole mess of magic, adventure, witchcraft, and well, all the things you could think of that could go wrong when people are not mentally stable. Ultimately, Don Quixote does go back home, and he dies. He was thinking about having like a normal career, like being a shepherd or something, but he ultimately dies and leaves his, fortunes, his money, everything he had to his niece. his housekeeper, and Panza. In terms of deeper meaning and analysis, Don Quixote, I mean, it's a good read. You should read it. It's very interesting. Personally, I think he had some mental problems. A person in middle aged had a good life, but you just reach a point where you're so bored that you take on this persona of being a knight, or doing all these types of crazy things, to the point where your friends had to go and find you and bring you back home. And so he does get defeated in a duel. So that's what ends the whole fiasco. But before then, he was just running around the country doing a bunch of really messed up things. It says a lot about individuals. Personally, I would have thought his mind snapped, and that's why he was doing all these types of crazy things. But these adventures are interesting to think about, to see, because a lot of these events are happening in his mind. Maybe he's seeing these things unfold in his mind. He's an unstable character. But again, this does stream from boredom and being from the mundane. Now I get it. Life for a lot of people around the world is pretty mundane and boring. But sometimes there's safety in mundane and boring. I mean, most people just want a job, they want a house, they want a car, they want a wife and kids, or husband and kids. And you just work towards that, and maybe as a family you take 1 to 2 vacations per year. That's the normal life that most people want, and the routine of that, it gets pretty mundane after a while, If you're doing it for 50 years, 60 years, you get up, go to work, come home, get up, go to work, come home, eat, sleep, enjoy your family, do it again and again and again. I mean, after 50 years, you might get bored of it. Some people, it's what they live for. Other people, maybe it's boring. Don Quixote, his method was, let's just go on full on crazy. Yeah. Let's just kick it up a notch. Let's get bonkers up in here. Yeah. That's the Don Quixote way. That's the Don Quixote method. And it's very interesting to see. He just abandons everything and goes for high adventure. So he enlists Panza as his squire, and they do all these adventures, and ultimately he dies. So Don Quixote is a very interesting character. It was very fascinating to see how this played out. On one hand, Don Quixote to me just seemed like this mental patient that went insane, because it got so bad that his 2 friends were like medical personnel that had to get him back home. And he's just like an insane man out for adventure, and we got to experience that adventure. And ultimately, his friends got him back home, and well, he died, and his niece, his housekeeper, and Panza inherited everything. So it's somewhat of a happy ending, but on one side, it's like high adventure. You get to see him go on these adventures that are mostly in his head, and on the other side, it's like looking at a madman, on the run, a loose madman out there that his friends and family had to rescue. So a really interesting work. Please remember to give a like, subscribe, and or comment. That's all I have to say about it. And I'll see you guys in the next video.